Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Tumbbad is an Indian horror film, came out in the year 2018. This is a movie directed by Rahi Anil Barve. Let's go with that. This is a movie that, I've been reviewing horror films through the month of October, and I've been reviewing Indian films for the last 4 months or so. This is an Indian horror film that I've looked into what the scariest. I literally searched the scariest Indian horror film. And this one was at the top of the list. I don't know what list. Maybe it was just Google that compiled this list. Either way, it was a movie that was already in my watch list on Amazon Prime. So I did watch it because despite the fact that I've enjoyed the 2 previous Indian horror films that I've reviewed on this show, they haven't necessarily been that scary. Of course, the first one was Stree, which is a comedy horror film, so wasn't really expecting too much. And then last week was Bulbul, which definitely more horrific, definitely had more of a horror feel to it. But this movie by far was the scariest Indian horror film I have seen so far. Hopefully, I will find others. But this movie also is kind of a morality tale, a tale of greed, a tale. There's a quote that opens this movie: "The world has enough for everyone's needs, but not for everyone's greed," which apparently is a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. And a great quote. Very true. This movie definitely deals with greed. And shows the horrors that can befall you if you become too greedy. So on that level, I enjoyed this movie. The overall message of the movie I enjoyed. But this movie also had some pretty terrifying imagery. This movie had some amazing practical effects, some amazing makeup effects, and kind of creature design, and also some pretty good digital effects as well. But the practical effects by far were my favorite aspect of this, and a good movie in general. I would say the beginning of this film takes place in 3 different time periods. The first part is during the childhood of a character, then the second part is kind of during their kind of young adult life, and then the third part is them as a parent. And I would say the scariest part of this movie, where there is the most kind of horror elements, is the first part, the first third of this movie, which I don't know if it's actually split into thirds, but there are definitely 3 separate sections to this movie. And I like that. I'm glad I finally found one that really feels like a through and through a horror film, despite the fact that it kind of, the second part, where we're seeing kind of the middle stage of that second part isn't as much horror, but it leads to more horror in the third part. Either way, I will be spoiling this movie, so if you don't want to be spoiled, I would highly recommend checking this movie out. It is a movie about greed. It is a movie that has monsters. It is a movie that, we see the downfall. We see, horrific things happening to people who, want more than they need. And it's a good movie. And, it's a movie that takes place in India. It takes place, the beginning part is kind of more of an outskirts, not really taking place near any kind of city. The town or village is called Tumbbad, and I don't know if it's a real place or not, but that is the area where a lot of a big aspect of this movie takes place, where the horrific things take takes place. It is kind of almost a cursed area. So it's unique in that way because it is a movie that most of the movies I've seen from India are usually based in more developed areas. And this one is kind of, at least the first part is definitely, actually through most of it is earlier times, right? During colonization, imperialism in India. And then I think the third part takes place just as India becomes free. But that first part of the movie is pretty terrifying. There's these kids that are there. Their mom is the mistress to an old man who owns this temple or this giant property, and she is the mistress for him. And her sons are there, and they're taking care of their grandma, and they're hoping that this old man who assumably has money is going to leave them with money. But when he dies, they find out they don't have anything, and that the property that he had is pretty worthless. But the situation is set up in a way that's it's interesting. Like, just the set, just the aesthetics of the movie are gorgeous. Like so many Indian films, like that is one thing. The level of cinematography and beauty that is captured in camera in the majority of Indian films I've seen is at a level that is a highly consistent level of beauty. And even though this is a dark and scary, tonally type of a movie, it is still captured in a way that is like gorgeous. Even though it's scary, it's still like gorgeous, scary. So these kids, there's like the scariest part is the fact that they have like this grandma they're taking care of, which it's kind of unclear if she is their grandma or if she is related to the guy. It seemed initially I thought she was related to the guy, but then maybe it was them. Either way, they're taking care of her. She's like old. You don't see her. It's terrifying. She's moaning and screaming and behind this closed door, and they have to make food for her. There are glimpses of her you see where the kids are trying to make food, but they prepare it wrong, right? The mom hasn't come back yet to feed her because she's crying for food. And the mom comes home and, slaps the food away from the kids before they go in there. They're not supposed to go in there. And, she prepares the food. And there's a scene where you see, you don't really get to see this old woman yet, right? It's all dark. It's not intentionally not showing you her. Like you hear her moaning and wailing. And there is a scene where you see the woman like trimming her toenails and her feet, similar to Stree, where the feet kind of look like they are charred and burnt. Like her toenails look like burnt petrified wood. Like the most disgusting toenails that this woman is using this type of trimmer to cut the toenails, and it is absolutely disgusting, right? And that's where I knew, aside from the fact it's just kind of creepy in general, when I saw that foot, I'm like, okay, I know what kind of movie I'm watching. Like, this movie is not afraid to put some horrific stuff, like to show you some disgusting stuff. And it's like also like, oh, the quality of effects and makeup in this movie are at a high quality. Just disgusting, absolutely disgusting watching her petrified toenails get trimmed. Let's take a little break from the show to promote gift certificates. If you want to purchase artwork for somebody, you have an art lover in your life, and you think they would like my art, but you don't know what painting to get them. I have over 2,000 original pieces of art for sale in my store, along with shirts and prints and other things. So I can understand that being a bit daunting if you're trying to buy something for somebody else. Give them the gift certificate, and then they can go to my website, inspireddisorder.com, and they can buy whatever paintings they want. They can buy whatever prints they want. They can buy t-shirts. They can buy hats. They can buy all the different merch, gift certificates, which are available currently at inspireddisorder.com. And now let's get back to the show. And then there's like an accident that happens where one of the kids falls off of a wall, right? Cracks his head open. They have to get some kind of cart, some kind of transportation to go to a doctor that's far away. And the one kid is left there. It's nighttime. It's stormy. It's not a good situation. It's a scary time to be alone with a creepy old lady that you're supposed to be taking care of, that you're supposed to be feeding. And it's a scary situation. I mean, even just the camera work of how that whole scene plays out, where the kid falls down and that you see them like rushing to this like taxi or whatever, and then her kind of crying as they're taking this kid to go to a doctor, and then the taxi driver's like, do you want me to still go to the doctor, or should I just go to the cemetery, right? Like, is this kid really, like, this kid like really going to be saved? Or is it too late? Of course it's too late, because it's a horror movie. Good things don't happen in horror movies. And this kid is left to take care of his grandma, and he's given like these secret words to like go to sleep or Hastur will kill you. And this movie starts with a little story, a little parable of the gods. All these gods were made, and then there was this one god came named Hastur that was made, and it was greedy, and it like went for the money instead of the food. Like, it had two options, to either eat or to go for the money, and it went for the money. It's all like, it represents greed in some way. And Hastur is like this evil demon god kind of a thing that they're scared of. And it's this it's these like special saying that you could say to grandma, go to sleep or else Hastur will get you, and that will put her to sleep if she gets scary or making too much noise, right? But of course the kid forgets the names, first time he's ever heard that name. And as he's trying to prepare, everything's falling apart. He can't make the food. Like, the flour's going everywhere. Things are spilling. Like, he's like freaked out. And then he's constantly trying to forget it. But in that moment, you actually get to see what this old woman looks like. And it's horrifying, right? I mean, just looks like almost like a zombie in some ways. She has like these nails that protrude through her cheeks as if her mouth was in some ways nailed shut. Screaming for food, just like the most intricate, detailed makeup effects for this monstrous old woman, just disgusting looking, as this kid is like chained up by her, right? He can't think of the magic words to put her to sleep, and just horrible things are happening, dragging him around. It's like, it's horrific, this first scene. And then it come to the mom comes back, and they have to like leave this area because the guy died, the old man died. They left, they have nothing, so they need to leave that area. And it's a cursed area. She doesn't want him to go back there. And when they're leaving, she's like telling him, like, you need to tell me you're never going to go back to Tumbbad. You need to tell me. I will kill you if you go back there. Like, I wish you had died instead of, because this kid is greedy. He's like, we need to go. There's a treasure there. He knows there's a treasure there. We need to go back, and we need to see if that old lady knows where the treasure is. And he is just like, this kid is being greedy. And the mom is like, no, it is not worth it. It is not worth it to go back there. I forbid you to go back there. I will kill you if I find out you go back there, right? She is serious. And also pretty mean to the kid. But also, you kind of understand why, right? Maybe not the best tactic to get your kid to not go back to a place, but also you see the naive nature of a kid and knowing how important society reacts to somebody with money versus not having money, and the importance of money, and to be told not to pursue the thing that is seemingly the most important to society seems antithetical to the existence of what we're doing here. So to be punished and to be said, like, it makes sense on both sides, right? Still kind of a painful scene where she's telling her kid, like, I will kill you. I wish you had died instead of your other brother, because your other brother wouldn't be this greedy. Cut to 13 years later, and of course, that kid, grown up, has a beautiful handlebar mustache, and of course goes back to this place, goes back to Tumbbad, and again, amazing, like, art department, set design, whatever, in this room that he goes to where the old woman was. He goes back to that room, and it's just overgrowth everywhere. Roots are grown everywhere, like cobwebs, spider webs everywhere, like filled this room, like really making the space claustrophobic, but still dead. And then he sees on the floor where the tree is growing out of inside this room is the old lady, who is like, you see the heart kind of beating. It's outside of the body, like the body's decomposed, except for the heart still beating, and the face is still there where she can still talk. And there's this scene where they like, they talk, and he's older. He's not as scared as he was, and plus it's daytime, and plus she's kind of dead in a lot of, not dead, but she's immobilized. She's kind of melted into the ground with a tree growing out of her. And he mentions that she's got a tree growing out of her, and they share a laugh, which is kind of scary, that they're like bonding. Like there's like this jovial moment between the two of them. But he's trying to find out where this supposed treasure is, right? That's what he went back there for. And he finds where this place is, this cave that looks like everything is made of like flesh. And it's referred to as the goddess's womb, right? Because that is the place where Hastur had been punished to live out his existence within the goddess's womb, because I forget the original story that started off this movie. So this tomb that he goes into, like crawls down a rope to get into, like it just looks like it's covered in flesh, and it has that kind of like wet organic type of a look to it, which is great as well. And that's where we see him doing some things, but you don't really see what happens necessarily. But you see that he is able to steal money, right? He comes back with money, right? He comes back and he's got these gold coins, and he's paying off his debts, and he's kind of with the guy who he gets loans from, is starting to sell him this gold that he's getting. And then later we see how he gets the gold, how it's like this process, how it's like the treasure is there, but it's like, it's tricky how he has to get it, right? The trick is he has to like distract this monster thing, which is Hastur, by throwing it, who is constantly hungry, similarly to this old lady that was there, who was like just always could never have the hunger replenished, right? Constantly hungry. So they would throw these dolls made of dough for Hastur to eat, and while Hastur was eating the dough, he would rip the pouch on Hastur's loincloth, and money would pour out, and he would collect it really fast and then have to climb up the rope and close the tomb door before Hastur could get him, right? So it's like a tricky thing where it's like not easy. That's why he was only getting a few coins at a time, right? But he would constantly go back. Let's take a little break from the show to promote. If you sign up for Inspired Disorder Plus for 1 year specifically, you get a free painting. So a year subscription of Inspired Disorder Plus is $50. The painting, the majority of them are $100. So it's a $150 value signing up for 1 year of Inspired Disorder Plus. So not only do you get a free painting, but you also are subscribed to Plus for a year, which means that you can binge this show, The Ray Taylor Show, ad-free, the full week, ad-free, available on Monday. You also get discounts that are members-only pricing type of deals. All of the podcasts that I've produced in the past, close to 20 different podcasts I've produced, hundreds of episodes. There's also my personal blog. You can ask me anything if you want to start podcasting or get into art. All of that stuff available in addition to a free painting when you sign up to 1 year subscription of Inspired Disorder Plus.
Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. And now let's get back to the show.
And then a lot of the middle of this movie is kind of just him and his life and how this money has changed his life. He was able to get a nanny to help around the house. They were able to, build their house up. Later, that guy ends up working for him, or they become business partners in some way. Like, you see how it has changed his life. Kind of for the good, but still, it's not easy. He's able to do it, but, it's an interesting kind of aspect of the movie where you're just seeing this guy older kind of benefiting from this money that he is getting from this god Haster. And then cut to 14 years even past that, and now he has kids, and it starts with his kid kind of doing training, like doing a mock kind of scenario of him pulling coins out of a loincloth and then climbing a rope, and the kid's got like a gimpy foot. So he's, maybe not the most athletic, the most versatile kid, but still doing it and trying to live up to his dad's expectations, clearly trying to be groomed in a way to take his father's place as his dad is getting older, and, being able to collect that money is getting harder because he's slower, he's less agile, he's getting older, he's getting hurt. It's like, it's time to pass the torch, as it were, and seeing that kid, and then you see how the father learns a bit of what it's like for your kid to be greedy, kind of seeing what his mom had to deal with when his son has greed, of sees how the process is done and has an idea, thinking like a shortcut, a way to get the entire pouch instead of just trying to shake the money out of the pouch. And you see how that greed and how that need for a loophole or a shortcut, how that goes horribly wrong. Right? Something unforeseen happens when they try and do this thing out of greed, and how horrible it is and how sacrifices have to be made. And it's great how this ends. I don't want to spoil necessarily exactly what happens at the end, but it's an interesting thing that this guy growing up, going against the wishes of his mom, following greed, how that greed has improved his life, but how eventually history repeats itself, and he sees the downsides. He sees, and in some ways pays for the greed of his child. So it's interesting. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the story. I like the ride of it. The end is amazing. The practical effects are amazing. It's a story where it's like it's like a bummer, right? It's a bummer just to see people doing things that are bad for themselves in order, but it also sucks that we live in a society, in a world where money is so important, where, especially if you're poor, like the quality of life is so immensely easier when you have some money versus not having any money, and how easy it is to be greedy. And you see greed even with people who have a lot of money, which we see, when the greed of his son comes, it's like they don't need to do these things, right? It's not a necessary thing. They aren't wanting of anything. They aren't poor. They are doing well. So it's how, usually that kind of greed is rewarded in a lot of ways. I mean, you look at in reality in America, you look at millionaires and billionaires given free money by the government. They beg for money to pay for their legal fees, and it's like they never can have enough. You have like the Jeff Bezoses of the world, or the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, or the Elon Musks, and it's like there's never enough money for them. Like it is all about getting as much as possible, even though they have exponentially more money than the majority of the world put together. More money than any human should ever need in their entire life, and nothing happens to them. Like literally, because of the money they have, laws and governments and so much of life does not impact them whatsoever, in the same way that somebody who doesn't have money living without health care could instantly, in the blink of an eye, have everything turned upside down and be, just completely out of options. So, like, I wish there were these kinds of circumstances for people who are greedy, right? I wish life worked in a way where people who were greedy took great risk to become that greedy, right? Could stand to fail in great ways, like this movie would illustrate. But that's kind of not really. In a lot of ways, you're rewarded, even if you fail. Like, even so many people fail at things. Industries, businesses fail, and then they get bailed out. Like, once you get to a certain level, it's like you're almost invincible. So I almost wish life was like this movie. I almost wish Jeff Bezos would turn into just melt into the foundation of a goddess's womb for eternity, But that's not the reality. But I did enjoy this movie. I'd highly recommend it. Tumbbad, it's a great movie, just visually amazing. If you're looking for a scary movie, Indian, looking for a different flavor of horror film, I'd highly recommend it. I watched it on Amazon Prime, so it's a good one and easily accessible. Not to give more money to Jeff Bezos, but that's where you can find it. But anyway, it's a great movie. I enjoyed it. Check it out. Tumbbad.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.